Hello, everyone. Brandi Passante, the fiery, confident, sharp-tongued woman who became one of the breakout stars of A&E's hit show Storage Wars, was once the queen of the bidding floor, a fearless competitor with a keen eye for value and a personality that commanded attention. To millions of viewers, she was the perfect mix of beauty, brains, and business savvy, someone who could take on the loudest men in the room and still walk away with the best deal. But behind that fierce exterior, behind the smiles, comebacks, and high-stakes auctions, Brandi carried a secret, one that would haunt her career, shape her relationships, and ultimately define the woman she became when the cameras stopped rolling. For years, fans wondered what really happened to her after she seemingly vanished from television screens. And now, the truth about Brandi Passante's life, her struggles, heartbreak, resilience, and the secret she held close for decades, has finally come to light. To understand her story, we have to go back to the beginning, to a time before fame, when Brandi was just an ordinary woman from Orange County, California, trying to make a living and raise a family. She met Jared Schultz in the early 2000s, long before the world knew them as the power couple of Storage Wars. Together, they built a small thrift store called Now and Then Secondhand Store, scouring garage sales and auctions for hidden gems. It was their chemistry, his impulsive nature, and her grounded realism that caught the attention of A&E producers when they were casting for a new reality series about professional storage buyers. When Storage Wars premiered in 2010, it was an instant sensation, and Brandi became an unexpected star. Fans adored her no-nonsense attitude and quick wit, while the men on the show, Dave Hester, Daryl Sheets, and Barry Weiss, often tried to dominate the screen. Brandi held her own. She wasn't just the token female. She was the strategist, the thinker, the one who could turn a pile of junk into profit with quiet confidence. But fame, as it always does, came with a price. As the show's popularity exploded, so did the pressure. Brandi and Jared's relationship, once built on shared ambition and love for adventure, began to crumble under the weight of celebrity life. Their once private partnership became a reality TV storyline, edited, dissected, and speculated upon by millions. Rumors of fights, jealousy, and financial troubles swirled. Still, Brandi smiled for the cameras, projecting the image of strength even as her personal life began to unravel behind the scenes. The truth was that she was fighting battles no one knew about. The stress of balancing motherhood, fame, and a relationship that was slowly deteriorating. By the time Storage Wars entered its later seasons, the cracks were impossible to hide. Jared's erratic behavior, their on-screen arguments, and their increasingly distant dynamic were clues that things were falling apart. When A&E announced Brandi and Jared's split in 2019, fans were heartbroken, but few realized how deep the wounds really went. Brandi later revealed that the breakup wasn't just difficult, it was traumatic. She had spent nearly 2 decades building a life, a family, and a business with a man who was no longer the person she once loved. She suddenly found herself single, a mother of 2, and under the unforgiving gaze of the public eye. Yet, amid that heartbreak, Brandi carried something she had never shared publicly, a secret she kept buried for most of her adult life. It wasn't about fame or fortune, but about pain, about what she had endured quietly long before the cameras ever found her. In interviews years later, Brandi finally opened up, revealing that she had faced trauma early in her life, a deep, personal struggle that shaped the strong, guarded persona viewers came to know. Though she never gave full details, she hinted that she had survived something that nearly broke her, a painful chapter that taught her to rely only on herself and to use toughness as a shield. Fans who once saw her as fearless began to understand her in a new light, that her strength wasn't arrogance, it was survival. After her breakup with Jared, Brandi withdrew from the spotlight. She made few public appearances, skipped several Storage Wars tapings, and turned her attention inward, focusing on her children and her personal healing. On social media, she began posting cryptic but empowering messages about resilience, independence, and starting over. A woman rediscovering who she was outside the shadow of her ex and the fame machine that had concealed another truth that shocked fans, that she had faced serious health issues following her breakup, including emotional exhaustion and anxiety, symptoms she had long hidden to maintain her strong image. For the first time, Brandi wasn't performing for cameras or fans. She was simply surviving for herself. But even as she struggled privately, the world refused to let her rest. Tabloids ran endless stories about her love life, speculating about new relationships, plastic surgeries, and possible comebacks. What they missed, though, was that Brandi was quietly rebuilding, turning her pain into purpose. She began dedicating time to charity, mental health awareness, and women's empowerment causes, often speaking indirectly about the pressures of reality TV and how fame can destroy personal relationships if boundaries aren't set. Those who followed her closely began to see that the secret Brandi had carried wasn't just her trauma, it was her ability to endure it without losing her humanity. When Storage Wars returned for new seasons in the early 2020s, fans were thrilled to see Brandi back on screen. But this time, she was different. Gone was the woman defined by her partnership with Jared. In her place stood someone wiser, calmer, and more self-assured. She often joked about her single life, using humor to mask pain, but her confidence shone through, proof that she had learned to stand on her own. Off camera, however, she continued to grapple with the realities of fame. In several podcast appearances, Brandi spoke candidly about how lonely the spotlight can be, admitting that fame had isolated her from friends and that she'd been betrayed by people she trusted. She said she often wondered if all the fame and money were worth the emotional cost, confessing that she'd considered leaving TV behind for good. Still, Brandi never completely walked away. She maintained her connection with fans through social media, sharing glimpses of her real life, her love of cooking, her children, her quiet nights at home, all far removed from the high drama of Storage Wars. Over time, the woman once known for her sarcasm and fiery attitude became a symbol of strength for women navigating life after heartbreak. Yet, even in her healing, there were shadows. In one deeply personal interview, Brandi hinted that her biggest struggle wasn't the breakup or the fame. It was learning to forgive herself for the choices she made while trying to keep everyone else happy. It was the pain of losing herself in the process of becoming a TV persona, and the guilt of realizing how much she had hidden from the people who cared about her. When fans talk about the secret Brandi Passante took to the grave, they're not referring to scandal or shame. They're talking about the emotional burden she carried in silence for decades, the trauma, the strength it took to survive it, and the courage it took to keep going when the world only wanted entertainment. Her secret was her humanity, the quiet truth that behind every confident smile was a woman who had suffered, endured, and learned to rebuild herself from the ashes. Even today, Brandi continues to live privately, focusing on her kids and her own peace. While Storage Wars continues to air in reruns, many fans agree that it was Brandi who gave the show its soul. The steady hand, the wit, and the emotional balance that made it more than just a show about buying old storage units. Her journey, from small-town thrift store owner to reality TV star to single mother rediscovering her identity, is one of perseverance, heartbreak, and ultimately, transformation. The cameras may have stopped rolling, but Brandi's story resonates more deeply than ever. because it mirrors the truth of so many who appear strong on the outside while carrying invisible scars within. In the end, the secret she held wasn't one of shame or deceit. It was the strength it took to protect herself in a world that constantly tried to break her. And now that the truth is out, her legacy isn't just about the deals she made or the treasures she found. It's about the quiet, unbreakable resilience of a woman who refused to let fame, heartbreak, or trauma define her final story. Thanks for watching.